Hello, hello, hello. How is everyone doing today? I'm so excited to be here today for this workshop, Creating a Culture of Belonging. My name is Deborah Sharmaluz. I am working with the Technically team to produce this workshop series, and I'm so happy that you guys are here. Just to get some chat engagement, to get our energy up. I know it's the middle of the week, middle of the day, middle of the week. We still have half a week to go, but please answer the questions in the chat below. We would love to hear from you. I really want to encourage you all to communicate in the chat during this workshop. We're here to learn from one another. We're here to support each other, and hopefully you can meet some incredible people through this chat. So as I mentioned, my name is Deborah Sharmaluz. I am a absolutely proud Philly native, and I'm an experiential producer based out of Philadelphia. And this is a lot of the work that I do. I love connecting people to resources to create change and make a better world, which is why I'm really happy today that we get the opportunity to start this workshop series for the Most Diverse Tech Hub. So today we'll be talking a bit about DEI, how you can incorporate it into your workshop and into your organization, and how we can really take these ideas and apply it not just for 1 week, not just for 1 month, but for years to come. So that's enough about me. I'll leave it to our speakers to speak a little bit more. Today we have, of course, Amber Jones, who's going to be leading the workshop, but we also have Heloise Jettison from Philadelphia's Commerce Department, and she's going to speak a little bit to the Most Diverse Tech Hub and the work we're going to be doing over the next year.
Thank you so much, Deborah. So good afternoon, everyone. Again, Heloise Jettison, and I am the Deputy Director of the Commerce Department, specifically for the Workforce Development Division. And we are very, very happy to put forth this initiative, which is direct output from one of our Mayor Kenny's pillars, which is to diversify the tech space, tech industry, and provide more opportunities. And it was really important for us, so we took it out and had a competitive RFP to pull in our 4 fantastic grantees. Technically is one of the 4 grantees to help us promote this initiative, which had 2 prongs. One, to increase the talent pipeline for our tech space and our tech employers here, small, medium, and large, tech and tech enabled, to ensure that we had some connectivity around helping young people and young adults cultivate and learn, all the opportunities that are in the tech field. And then the second was to elevate our Black and Brown founded tech businesses, and also just the diversity aspect in general of tech and information technology. So we're in our 2nd year. So technically has been doing this for us for already a full year, as our other partners in cultivating these pipelines. The other partners include Campus Philly, Coded by Kids, and Venture for America. Some of them you may have heard of, I'm sure, and they do a great amount of work in ensuring there's opportunities and exposure for our young people, high school, middle school, and college bound and non-college bound, to see what opportunities are in this space, and that they're welcome and that they should be there. And most importantly, this series, and I'm really grateful to Technically for what they're doing, starting with how to diversify the workspace, because it's more than just a term. Just DEI should not just be a term, but we need to help our partners and our stakeholders and our workers understand what it really means to be in a workplace culture that welcomes you, is open, and is a thriving environment, but also for our businesses to understand, how do I do that? How do I attract and retain talent? Because that's the main thing, right? And Philadelphia has the best talent in the world, I will say, because I too am a native Philadelphian. And we want to make sure we tap that talent, and we make sure that they have great opportunities, good experiences, internship, apprenticeship, on to full-time, well-paying jobs in a very, very high growth industry, which is tech. So I'm really excited to have you all here. Thank you to Technically. Thank you to Amber for what you're going to share today. And I'm looking forward to hearing what everyone has to offer as well. So thank you so much. And I'm going to turn it back to Deborah.
Thank you. Wow, that mute button sure hides. So Great. Thank you so much for that introduction to the Most Diverse Tech Hub. You know, this is just the very first workshop over a year's long workshop. And also there's so many other initiatives that is happening concurrently. So please, if you haven't heard of the initiative, maybe you found out about this through a different source, visit Technically's website to learn more about what we're doing, but of course, what all of our other partners are doing as well. I'm so happy to introduce today Amber Jones. She is the Chief of Staff at Verizon currently, and she's just a great resource for all things DEI. We're really excited for her to kick off our workshop today, so I'll pass it along to her.
Thank you so much, Deborah. Hi, everyone. Thank you to the Technically team and Philadelphia's Department of Commerce for helping me or having me kick off the Most Diverse Tech Hub initiative. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you today. As Deborah mentioned, I'm Amber Jones. My pronouns are she, her, and I am a Chief of Staff at Verizon, where I support the Senior Vice President of Marketing Activation and Brand Development. And prior to Verizon, I led operations at a fintech startup called Wethos. And there I helped build the business from the ground up, all the way past the company raising $8 million for its first investment round. From our company policies and employee engagement to customer data analysis and building the company's DEI strategy, I sure did have my hands full. I'm currently based in Brooklyn, but I am a proud former Philly resident who had the pleasure of just coming back for a few days while we had that gorgeous weather just a few weekends ago. I'm also a Temple alum, so if you're an owl, please show some love in the chat. But you know, enough about me. I am excited to get into the real reason why we're here today. A very important and, you know, one of my favorite topics to discuss, which is creating a workplace culture of belonging and how to create a DEI strategy that works. As mentioned before, this is not a one and done commitment. This is something that is ongoing, and you will always be learning and you will always be growing. So in terms of why we're here today, we've got a lot to cover in the next 45 minutes or so. And I hope that you take in at least a few things that will help you and your organizations take action to create a more equitable workforce. So we're going to chat about why it's important to care about diversity, equity, and inclusion in your organization, which sets the foundation of building a strategy. And next, we're going to go through ways where you can develop that DE&I strategy that works. And think about those factors that your org should consider as you work through what those goals look like. And one of the biggest things that I hear is that budgets are tight, but we want to make sure that we could be extremely intentional about our DE&I programming without breaking the bank. Well, great news. There's a way to make that happen, and we'll get into more of that in a bit. And our last topic is critical. How do you show up for your teammates? How do you build that culture of belonging and authenticity? And how can we practice allyship without tokenizing or making folks, including the offenders, feel excluded, and instead using those experiences as a learning opportunity? And I think at the end, we'll have a little bit of time for Q&A, and there's a worksheet that will be shared, which is a goal setting framework that you all can take with you as you make an action plan with your organizations. So, you know, before we dive in, I have a question for you all. And we kind of touched on this a little bit in the intro, but in the context of this session, what do you hope to take away? Go ahead and take the next minute or so to write your answers in the chat. Awesome, awesome. Great. I see some things coming in. Eileen is looking for concrete takeaways to bring back to my organization on how we can better our own DEI efforts and amplify that to the technically community across the mid-Atlantic. Love to hear it. Deb said, I hope to get some actionable steps that will benefit future DEI strategies for years to come. One of my favorite things about the way I do strategy, I try to make it in a way where it's repeatable and scalable. So hopefully you all get the same thing as well. Flynn wants at least one idea that you can implement in April for your team. Amazing. This is going to be one of the first steps to take to figure out what that idea is. And same with Beth, similar to you. Emma, hi Emma. How to support and show up for current and future teammates and 2022 initiatives to implement. Awesome. Christine, gather new ideas that are actionable now as we work on building a more robust plan moving forward that is scalable. I love it. Always great to have the short-term solutions in place, but long-term planning is equally as important as you align that to the mission and values of your company. So thank you all again for your input. Super, super excited to dive in deeper with you all. So let's just get right into it. So, why does making a DEI strategy matter? You may have asked this question yourself. Maybe your team isn't fully sold, or maybe leadership is waiting to get that reason to validate the investment. Well, here's some things for you and these folks to think about. Having a DEI strategy allows your organization to maintain and create a culture where all employees feel seen and heard. Ensuring that your teams feel welcomed in the environment that they spend any number of hours in is important for their workplace well-being, their productivity, their engagement, career growth, and the list goes on. The next couple of points are quite complementary to one another. Having this strategy can create opportunities to learn from diverse perspectives. You've probably heard this, but diverse teams produce amazing outcomes. So allowing space for a variety of thoughts from a variety of different backgrounds, creates space for learning something new. Maybe you can take a risk or just generally thinking outside of your comfort zone. And next, your company values might simply state that your organization cares about DE&I, or it may be a part of your business model. For example, one of my previous company's missions was to put more money into freelancers' pockets to drive more equity in the independent worker market. We thought, okay, if we're doing this for our users, why not make equity an internal value as well? Ultimately, don't talk the talk, you got to walk the walk as well. Creating a culture of belonging where employees feel seen and heard is a proactive organizational tactic that can really help with your retention rates. The happier and more comfortable your teams feel in this work environment, the more their satisfaction will increase, and they might just stick around. And finally, it is the right thing to do. By taking in all of the points above, you'll see a positive impact that a DEI program makes on your employees, your policies, your procedures, your budget, and so much more. So, before we go a little bit deeper, we've got a poll coming up. And, let's get real. What is your biggest obstacle that you face with your DE&I program or strategy? And I'll just talk over this a little bit, but, is it you don't know where to start or how to prioritize? Is your org cash strapped and you're not sure if you can make the investment? Are you getting pushback from leadership, or do you need some help getting their buy-in? Are you just unsure of how to engage your team and keep them interested and ultimately committed to the goals? So we'll take a moment for you all to share your answers. All right. Okay. So this is actually quite an even mix, not surprising, but good to know. So 30% of us said we don't know where to start, what to prioritize. That makes total sense. We're going to go through that. You've got budget restraints. Fair enough. We will go through some solutions on how we can build some cost-effective programming. Leadership buy-in, that's tough. You got to get these folks committed in order to make this investment worth it. And finally, team engagement. You want to make sure that you're taking the right steps to keep the team feeling good about these commitments, feeling like they can, take action and be allies within the company and beyond. So totally understand, you want to make sure everyone is super, super committed from the very start. So, whether you face one of these, some of these, or all, we're just going to work through some tactics on how you can make a solid DE&I strategy that works. So now that we understand what may be holding us back from taking that next step, we're going to need to understand how to develop that strategy. So, I remember starting this journey a few years back and thinking, okay, where do I even start? How do I get people on board? I don't know really what I'm doing. And before I share more, I will say that when I started this journey, I did work with a fantastic DE&I consultant named Adrielle Parker, who helped my organization and I every step of the way as we were stepping into this world. And I learned so much from here. So again, I really look forward to sharing these learnings with you all today. So, the first thing is that you should think about why this strategy is important to your organization. You may want to set, some guiding principles around that, which is basically outlining the reasons why a strategy of this type is needed. Maybe it's because you want to increase the number of women in leadership, or because your product or service needs to be more accessible towards those with disabilities. So this is the first step in defining your org's commitments and really mean it. And the next thing you may ask is, how do I even define these goals? Well, data is your friend here, and you can easily gather feedback from your team to identify what's working, what can be improved, and where we can lean in order to better understand your opportunities and identify those gaps. By taking in a team's input, you'll decentralize decision-making, and based on the final goals, your team will see that they were included in the process and feel more inclined to hit those goals with you. A survey is a great place to gather this input, but just to note, be very, very clear about why you're doing this and what you will do with this information. I always believe that anonymity and confidentiality is super, super critical, and who sees the results prior to any summaries are equally as important. Err on the side of caution with these surveys to avoid any potential EEO complaints, and work with your HR department, legal team, and or your DE&I practitioner to create, facilitate, distribute, and safeguard this sensitive information. That data can also help you create realistic and achievable goals. Keywords: realistic and achievable. One of the biggest missteps one of my previous teams and I did was we felt like we needed to overcompensate with our targets. So we really felt like we were making big changes to do the right thing. But based on your in-house resources, based on your budget, and based on the other work priorities at hand, whether your DEI goals are short or long-term, they should really complement your company's overall goals, especially if you're a smaller company. Less is more, so that you can be intentional with your commitments. And once you've outlined why DE&I matters to your org and have a plan of action of where you can lean into to build those goals with a clear outcome of proposed impacts, then this is where you get that leadership buy-in. Take it to them, present the plan, and get them on board. If leadership asks more questions, such as how much is this going to cost? How much time is this going to take? Who's going to be the resources that we allocate to make this program come to life? To be honest, those questions are great, and you're headed in the right direction to bring that program to life. You'll also want to keep in mind how you measure the progress and how you show those successes and flops, let's get real, so that you can keep the program alive and breathing. If you need to measure this progress, you could do so in a Google Doc or a Google Sheet, or even a project or task management tool such as Monday.com or Notion. I have done all of these things and they have worked well in various forms. And the worksheet we'll discuss a little bit later is just one of the few ways I've tackled goal setting. And while we're on the topic of transparency, being honest about the data is extremely, extremely important, you all. DE&I is not an easy journey, and it requires everyone to be okay with feeling uncomfortable. If we didn't hit a goal or we didn't get a favorable result, yes, that might be a miss. That feels not great, but this isn't about being right or looking the best. Again, is taking the wins as wins and being unafraid to make mistakes because it is inevitable, but you learn and you make a commitment to do better the next time. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but sometimes you just don't know where to start when you're building this strategy. Maybe you didn't sign up for this role, or maybe you don't know which steps to take to make sure you're going in the right direction with your goals. And that is totally okay. Super, super common. This is honestly why professionals are here to help. You can find consultants to help you every step of the way, so you can really have a strategy that works, just as I did and mentioned to you all earlier. In my case, when I was working with Adriel, she helped us get it off the ground. She helped us identify our why, our goals, our measurement frameworks, and also helped lead a few company-wide workshops around things like unconscious bias or just like inclusive like meeting and hiring practices, things of that nature. And after working with her for about a quarter, we would just contract with her to do incremental work based on our continued DEI goals for the quarter, and for more targeted workshops with senior leadership, people managers, and again, more company-wide opportunities for learning. But you may want to work with someone on a longer term retained basis, and you may eventually hire someone in-house to take over the DEI work and the strategy as a whole. A consultant can work with you to do many of the things that we've already discussed, but this person is more hands-on, and we're going to have more than 45 minutes to outline your objectives, your why, build your strategy for the short and long term or on an ongoing basis. This person could also be a mediator, a coach, and or educator, especially if you don't have an HR team or someone on staff to help resolve those relevant issues. This person could also help you think outside the box by playing around with different approaches. A consultant will learn your organization's mission and vision and work with you all on how your strategy impacts your internal team and or your external audience. And as an example, a DEI practitioner I have worked with had experience working with tech companies. So because I was working at a software startup with a website and a moderate social media following, we had to do something like an accessibility audit of our website and our social media profiles, and had some work to do just to ensure that our digital presence was accessible to a variety of folks. So that's always a kind of a different approach that you could take if you are having trouble figuring out what the goal should be. Just map it back to what your business does and what your mission is. So you may not think of that as an option, but it might make sense for you to go in that direction. And finally, they can help your organization stay committed to the cause and hold you accountable. As we get into the habit of thinking with belonging and equity at the top of mind, we hope that these habits become an organic component of the way that your company's culture is set up, the way that we communicate and collaborate with one another, the way that we hit our goals together. So now that we know what we need to do to build a strategy and ways to bring it to life, the biggest question is, how in the world can we pay for this? So I'm now working at a huge corporation, Verizon, where we have a lot of clear resources, groups, and even departments that are focused on social and corporate responsibility, diversity, equity, and inclusion to help us create a culture of workplace belonging. But prior to then, I was working again at a cash-strapped startup where we were operating quite lean. We had limited budget for really anything. But at the end of the day, we understood that DE&I strategy and having something that was ironclad was super important to us. So we needed to make sure that this strategy was scalable and repeatable. And that was something that we did internally desire. So we made that commitment. And if you're in that realm, the first thing I'd offer is to leverage your internal resources. You could create a collaborative diversity, equity, and inclusion committee that's volunteer-based and comprised of employees who are generally excited and committed to evangelizing the program, building the programming, the events, the milestones, and also help organize goal setting. The worst thing to do is honestly let the hard work of DE&I fall on one person. DE&I is ultimately a company-wide commitment, not just an Amber commitment or a Beth commitment or an Aileen commitment. Whether you have an in-house team or a volunteer committee, everyone needs to be brought in and held accountable to creating that culture of belonging together. You can also work with your finance, HR, or people operations team to carve out those funds on a quarterly or annual basis to fund your programming. You may still have to operate lean, such as using, a free or cheap tool like Canva to build your marketing assets, or holding biannual workshops with a DE&I professional versus monthly or quarterly. But at least the money is there and you know what you can work with to make this program absolutely amazing. And another thing you could do is create ERGs or affinity groups with executive sponsorship. And when you have a leader on board, it shows kind of that you have that additional leadership buy-in, which will inherently influence others to take action. This person will also be able to tie any goals back to the business and the strategy overall, making DEI a good parent metric to drive the success of the program. And with the things that are cost effective in terms of programming that you can consider, you could try out things such as volunteerism, having training sessions or webinars held by a public speaker for a small fee, or a third-party vendor such as Life Labs for pre-recorded educational modules. Surveys, once again, are a great place, or questions to continue to gather ongoing feedback during times like your review cycle, or this could be anonymous polls in your DEI or people ops Slack channels, or if you have a performance management system and you're able to add in different questions for folks to answer, you might want to think about how you can seamlessly add that into the conversation on a week-over-week basis. Coaching is also, an avenue that could be on the higher cost side, depending on how many team members that you have on staff. But creating opportunities for employees to work on professional and or career development, behavioral skills, leadership with coaches, having that environment in a safe space allows for unbiased feedback and, the ability to just really share what's on your mind and get it all out so that, you can work with these professionals so you can be your best and real selves. So that is an option. I personally have explored, contracted, implemented all of these methods on a low budget. So, a couple other things to keep in mind is spread out your programming and, you can map them out to different tentpole holidays, social holidays, and cultural holidays and celebrations. So you could create a mix of opportunities that hit on education, celebration, and fun. And finally, consultants can help with this programming as well. So, utilize them aggressively. These are the people that are really going to help take things to the next level. So as we head into the last portions of the session, I feel like, I've shared so much with you all and I want to hear from you. So in the chat, please let us know, what does a culture and building a culture of belonging mean to you? Understand that you may need a bit of time to think about this one. So we'll give you all about a minute, excuse me, a minute and a half to write your answers in the chat. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. We've got some great answers in the chat so far. Creating a work environment where all team members, regardless of background, have psychological safety and are empowered to do their best work with ongoing support from the organization. Yep, I love it. We're going to talk about continuing to show up for folks and being a better ally and being an active bystander. Thank you. That said, being able to share, to be oneself at work and to share your thoughts and beliefs, knowing that they will be listened to and heard. I absolutely love that. Come as your own full self. And, you hope that when you're in this environment, everyone is very excited to learn about the real you, and you don't have to feel like you're hiding anything to be authentic in these environments. Colleen, it means creating a space where everyone feels safe and empowered, and a place where people see representation at all levels of a company. Absolutely. People, especially those who are in, more junior positions, it's very inspiring to see people who look like you or who represent what your background is, really taking charge as a leader and making positive change and impact to the organization as a whole. Christine said, creating a safe space for folks of all different backgrounds to come together and thrive, both professionally and personally. Yes, I think that the links between personal and professional are huge, especially as we are more hybrid oriented, and a lot of our work is at home, and we have a lot more flexibility. So making sure that we do have the policies and procedures and the forums in place for people to get together and feel that inclusion is incredibly important. And before we hop back in, I know that we're getting to the end soon-ish. So if you all have any questions that you want to answer, we'll have some time to discuss what's on your brains in a little bit. But moving on, we've now talked about how we build the foundations of a DE&I strategy, how we build that strategy itself, and how we make the programming pop in a cost-effective manner. But beyond that, we'll go back to the main sessions component, which is how we build that culture of belonging and authenticity. I've mentioned the word transparency in here a few times at this point, so that's clearly incredibly important. Being realistic, again, of where the opportunities lie and where your org could use some improvement is one thing. And also being realistic about what commitments your organization can ultimately deliver upon effectively is key. Celebrating diverse perspectives from the moment people walk into the door, or the virtual door for those who are still remote, of your company will set a great example of a new hire's experience. Having onboarding initiatives that allow for people to truly understand your company's mission, vision, the teammates, the policies, the processes, and so much more can easily make or break an employee's life cycle at your company. Think about implementing things like new hire buddy systems, so folks could get easily acclimated to your culture, and that they can have someone they can go to answer questions that we all tend to get embarrassed about when we really shouldn't when we first join a company. Think about also providing stipends for work from home setups if you're in a remote or hybrid company, or maybe think about having a relaxed dress code that is inclusive of all different types of backgrounds. Or you could think about having an expanded or progressive parental leave policy that includes fathers, trans and non-binary folks, surrogates, adoption. And you might want to consider mental health day for employees to take each quarter. At my last organization, it was required. We absolutely had to take at least one day a quarter to tend to ourselves and pour into ourselves, to really get that opportunity to just take a step away and, feel like we could go out on a Tuesday and, run our errands, get our coffee, or just lay around in bed or hang out on our couch all day. Whatever mental health means for you, so be it. But the option was there, and I sure did utilize it and take well advantage. Flexibility in these times are super, super important to take into account when it comes to ensuring that all employees do feel welcome. If you're creating a space of consistent learning, you could do that by providing coaching or mentorship, especially for those who are in marginalized or underrepresented groups. It's really important for career growth and gives, again, the employees the vision of themselves, seeing themselves grow into your company and growing in their roles. So that's also something to keep in mind. Learning and development programs, such as letting folks shadow other departments or working on a cross-functional project where you get to learn from all these different people and really show off your skills. It's a great way to give employees of all levels the opportunity to really flex those skills and achievements. And, they could teach their colleagues something new while they're continuing to grow as well. Skills training around empathy, collaborating in a hybrid environment, and things like resiliency or agility could be included. If you also have budget to support your employees, maybe pay for an external course or a fellowship program for your employees on, whether that's an annual basis or not, that could also be a part of this. A few other things to think about is look at the way that we run our meetings. Like, are you giving people the opportunity to share in ways that are comfortable with them? You just want to make sure that you're not putting the quiet person on the spot if that is not the way that they like to communicate. There's a different way where you could get folks out of their comfort zone without putting them on the spot and making them feel weird about the situation. You might want to reconsider your cameras on policy for Zoom, by the way. But also not calling on people if they don't ask or if they're shy, and also thinking about those other forums where people can share thoughts and feedback, whether that's during a meeting, post-meeting emails or Slack messages, or through your project management system is something to keep in mind so that all voices are heard in various different forums. Creating inclusive hiring practices. Take a look at your job descriptions and give them an audit to remove any bias or gendered language, or creating a consistent interview process so that all applicants are on an even playing ground across all areas of the business. And back on audits, accessibility audits for your company website and or your social media profiles, because we surely cannot forget about those who are disabled or neurodivergent. And finally, consistent and intentional education and celebration of diverse backgrounds without tokenizing marginalized and or underrepresented groups, whether these folks are in your organization or not, is incredibly important as well, and something that you can think about as you build this strategy. So, to wrap up, after all of this learning today, we gotta commit to being allies and show up for the team around us. One of my favorite phrases that I've learned over the past few years is to call in and not call out. We have or will go through or see something that rubs us or someone around us the wrong way, or hear something that is exclusionary, or we may be guilty of this ourselves. When this happens, you got to create space for learning and be vulnerable about those missteps. We're all a work in progress here, but at the end of the day, we're human and we do make mistakes. But we need to step in and step up to hold ourselves and one another accountable in order to keep doing the right thing with this goal. Avoid taking that conflict public or putting the person who was offended under a microscope. Be an active bystander. You can call in the behavior. You could state why it was wrong. You could bring it back to what your company policies are. And ultimately, you can report the behavior to a manager or at HR should things need to escalate. And if you don't feel comfortable getting involved, that's absolutely okay. Get your facts together and, again, work with someone in HR or senior leadership who will. And don't forget to highlight your accomplishments. This work is not easy, so you got to be able to celebrate the small wins and those big milestones and continue to do the work. It's not over from there. And showing up also means not expecting marginalized or underrepresented people to do the heavy lifting on this work. Many of these employees have faced microaggressions or a sense of exclusion at some point in their lives. So there's not a need to drum up trauma or discomfort that these folks are facing. Do the work on your own or work with a professional to help you out. And again, look at your policies. Are your pay bands equitable? Is your parental leave policy too rigid? As you return to the office on a hybrid schedule, is there a clear balance with in-person versus remote, with the processes, the perks, and the policies to match? Should you expand your medical benefits to offer therapy or fertility services? These are all like various tactics that you can think of that can make that might seem a little bit small, or it might seem a little bit daunting because it might be more work on your plate, but the impact that it will bring to your employees is incredibly invaluable. And finally, be a champion of psychological safety. In order to create a culture of workplace belonging, your actions have to match your words in order to create that amazing impact. So that is the end of this. I thank you all for all of this, and I hope that you have some clear takeaways. But we have our worksheet. And ultimately, the form of this worksheet is essentially a goal setting framework. If you are familiar with the OKR framework, that is objective and key results, it's essentially derived from there. But without getting too deep into this, the idea of the worksheet is to build a repeatable, scalable process to set diversity, equity, and inclusion goals on a company, team, or individual level. And this worksheet can be used quarterly, but can also be developed on a monthly or annual cadence, depending on what works best with your team. So I guess to wrap this up, and yes, again, you'll be receiving this worksheet via email post-workshop. It's super, super clear, and I'll give a little bit more information, but the main points is that you want to outline what your overall goal is, and then you'll want to define a few actions that you can take in order to hit that goal. And as you work through this progress, again, figure out how you want to measure these goals, and then how you can continue to improve on the program, get the feedback from the team on what went well and what didn't, what could be improved. Also thinking about gathering feedback on the things that people are interested in so that you can continue to build out your programming, and then making a plan for what your goals are going to look like for the next quarter or month or year. So to leave you with this, I am super, super interested. What is one action that you and your organization could take away this week to create a culture of workplace belonging? Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you all again so much. I see a few more things in the chat. Taking a pulse survey to give folks the opportunity to share their thoughts on where we are now before we make an action plan. Agree, it's important to listen first always, because again, without that feedback, it's really tough to build a strategy when you don't really understand how it might map back to employee engagement or your company's goals. My action will be supporting my SVP by further defining her role and contributions as the executive sponsor for our United ERG group at Verizon. And the final one we have here, again, a survey is a great place to start. We don't have a strategy in place, and gathering that data to identify our focus to set our goals is step one. That's awesome. And also spotlights on impactful women for Women's History Month. So love that so much, Colleen. So again, education, celebration, and fun. That's what this work is all about. Yes, it's not easy. Yes, it could get a little bit stickier, a little bit uglier, a little bit uncomfortable. But again, that's a part of this work. And it really shows that you care about making this commitment to drive a culture of belonging and inclusion within your workplace. So again, I'm going to pass this back off to Deb shortly, but definitely reach out to me or connect with me on LinkedIn if you are interested in talking more about this. Happy to share any additional thoughts, work on some action plans with you all. But thank you so much, Technically team and Philadelphia Department of Commerce, for having me kick off this really exciting initiative. So back to you, Deb.
Yay. Thank you so much, Amber. That was so informative and ultimately just a great time. If you want to show some love for Amber in the chat, give some applause. While I have all of your attention, I would love to bring you all to our post-event survey. Right now, if you can, just take some time to answer the questions that you see on the screen. They are so helpful for us as we continue to create programming to support you all. So I'll give it a minute for you to answer any questions, and also take the time to connect with Amber on LinkedIn. She just dropped her LinkedIn in the chat below. So we'll give you a second to complete the survey as well as connect to Amber on LinkedIn. Just a reminder, I just relaunched the poll, so feel free to submit your answers right now. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who has attended. Again, this is supposed to be a place where we can all connect with one another. So if you haven't yet, please share your LinkedIn in the chat. Please share anything that you would want to know. And continue to connect to Amber and everyone involved in making this happen. We want to thank the Philadelphia Department of Commerce just again for really making this into a reality. We're excited to continue to learn from one another. And most importantly, this is just the start. We got so much to learn. We have so much to do. So if you're interested in learning more, we've already launched the registration link for our next 2 workshops. We'll be looking at evaluating job descriptions for bias and also establishing equitable and transparent conversation. Thank you so much for coming today. We're so happy to be able to do this. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly at Deborah@technical.ly. I'll drop my email in the chat as well. But also you're more than welcome to go to technical.ly, technically, to learn more about the work that we do. Yeah, we'll be ending the webinar here, but again, if you have any questions, feel free to let us know. Hope you guys have a wonderful day.